votes in
This
favor
conference will
or
now be
9 votes
recorded.
against are required for our action to be official. If fewer than 9 of us agree to either approve or disapprove an action, that case must be heard again next month. Our vote on a request to subdivide is final. Our vote on a request to rezone serves as a recommendation to the appropriate city council, town council, or county commissioners, who must ultimately decide on changes in zoning. When addressing the commission, please state your name and address for the record. Cell phones must be turned off while the meeting is in session. If you need to make a call, please step out of the room before using your phone. All exhibits presented to the commission become the property of the commission. Mr. Schroeder.
I move that there be incorporated in the public hearing portion of each application to be heard this evening and become part of the evidence at such hearing, the Unified Zoning Ordinance, the Unified Subdivision Ordinance, the Comprehensive Plan, the bylaws of the Area Plan Commission, the application and all documents filed therewith, the staff report and recommendations on the applications to be heard this evening, and responses from checkpoint agencies.
I second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. Ordinance amendments.
I move to hear and vote on UZO Amendment Number 103-A.
I second.
Good evening, David Hiddle with the Area Plan Commission. This is the self-storage ordinance amendment that's been in front of the Plan Commission a number of times this year. Last time was 2 months ago at your April meeting, where there are two different versions brought forward. This one in front of you here, which is Amendment 103A, January 2022, is what was recommended for approval by APC staff and by the City of Lafayette, which initiated this request. And then this one, which is the same thing but version April rather than January, was one that had some language crafted and added at the end when it came before the Ordinance Committee. At the April meeting, the Plan Commission, it was brought to a vote, the April one, not both, but just the April one, and it was denied by a 13-2 vote. Following the state-appointed path for ordinance amendments, it then went to the town and city council. So there are 6 legislative bodies that the Plan Commission serves, and any decision on an ordinance amendment that is made here, or rather a recommendation, then goes to the town and city councils as well as the county commissioners as the legislative bodies. They voted to amend the APC vote. And with that amendment, they recognized the denial of 103A April, which is the additional language recommended by the Ordinance Committee, and supported 103A January, which was the original language supported by APC staff and City of Lafayette staff. So, per state code, because the legislative bodies amended the recommendation that came from the Plan Commission, it goes back to the Plan Commission, which is where it is tonight, and this is the decision that the Plan Commission has before it, again by state code. 2 options. You can approve the amendment as it reached you back from the legislative bodies, and if you do that, then it's done. It's essentially, that's the end of the process. Or you can disapprove the amendment as it stands coming back to you from the legislative bodies, which sends it back to the legislative bodies, and they have 45 days to act on it as they will. It's been kind of a tortuous process. And I hope, well, are there any questions about what stands in front of you? This is the first time that it's taken this path from the Plan Commission, I think, in a long time, if ever. And so Eric and our staff has been sort of navigating the code each step of the way. So this is where it is. You have choice A or choice B for a vote. We've had a conversation, a number of Plan Commission members and our staff, an email conversation about kind of reinforcing the fact that per state code, the Plan Commission is in many ways an advisory body in that it makes recommendations that move on to the legislative bodies. The exception being plats. The Plan Commission is the final authority on plats that come before it, but zoning amendments, comprehensive plan amendments, rezonings, those are subject to your recommendation, which then go to the legislative bodies. Now, up to 95% of the time, those legislative bodies carry forth the Plan Commission recommendation, but they are the ultimate decider on those issues. So that might not have been clear to everybody. It's kind of doesn't always get mentioned. Any questions?
So David, what is before us to approve, to vote yes or no on is the January amendment.
Essentially, it's you're voting on what's come back to you from the legislative bodies. And so we went to them and just to try to make this as clean as possible, told them this is what state code says to do as far as language. And so they voted to amend, recognized the Plan Commission's denial of the April language and supporting approval of the January language in its place. So that's what they're suggesting. So you can vote to affirm that suggestion, or B, you can vote to disapprove it, which sends the whole bundle back to each of the 6 legislative bodies.
And just as far as the motions, I think the simple motion is we move to approve. And what you are saying is we move to approve what the legislative bodies have sent you. Or we move to disapprove.
Right,
And
one of those
again,
2 motions.
What you're disapproving, moving to disapprove is what the legislative bodies have sent back to you. And we are an advisory body, and at the end of any road, essentially the legislative bodies, the elected officials will make the final decision on it. So I think that would be the appropriate form, either approve or disapprove that which has been sent to you by the legislative bodies.
Before we have questions from the board, is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak on this amendment? Okay, any questions from the commissioners?
I might have a comment, and it seems at this point, the easiest thing to get this approved is just approve. Their change that they sent back to us would be the smoothest, but I would like to maybe comment on what the ordinance committee was thinking when we adopted some language. And if I remember correctly, the initial proposal from the city did not even allow a special exception and would make those storage units non-conforming with no chance of becoming conforming. And I think we made a recommendation, as we did in the county, this stands in the county also, that they can get a special exception, which means the ones that are there can become conforming. And if a new site comes forward, we'll at least have a public hearing and see if that's appropriate, which I think works well. But so the language change from the ordinance committee was just try to make the existing self-storage units already in operation or being constructed being conforming by right, but they now have the option of getting a special exception and becoming conforming. So I'm going to vote for this just to make it smooth to have the ordinance read correctly for all the jurisdictions. Thank you.
We want to get a motion to either approve or disapprove on, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, I thought we did.
I don't think we did we?
Yeah, well, we had a vote.
Vote on it.
Yeah, we did.
Good.
We did.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Quick point, considering we're voting on it, thank you for that, and for everybody who's learned a lot throughout all of this. We're voting on A or B, but our ballot states yes or no.
Approve would be yes,
Okay,
and
so A is yes,
correct.
B
Yeah.
is no.
And that's why I wanted to make it, I mean, this is a very generic, I move to here and vote on. Yes,
Thank you.
but let's make sure what we're voting on, we're going to vote to approve or disapprove. And your ballot does that by yes or no, affirmative or negative.
Thank you.
All right. Is everybody clear? Because this has gotten tangled quite a bit. All right. Any other questions? Speak now or forever hold your peace. All right, you have a yellow ballot.
Let's see here. Okay, we got one more coming for you. Thank you.
Thanks, Carly.
Fifteen ballots cast, 14 yes and 1 no.
Thank you, Mr. Hiddle.
I move to hear and vote on Resolution 2022-03.
I second.
Oh,
I was wondering if you were just taking over here.
Good evening. We do have sign-in sheets for the multi-hazard mitigation plan that we'll need to ask everyone to sign. So we have record for the plan. Part of the requirements is we have to document who is at these meetings. So we'll ask that of the board and then also of the public if they could sign in. In case you missed it, we do have sign-in sheets up here. And then so the multi-hazard mitigation plan is a process that gets updated every 5 years. It's a requirement of the Federal Disaster Act of 2000. And our largest change this year was, in the previous years, we there we go. We got the town of Otterburn to be included in this amendment. Since a portion of their corporate limits are inside of Tippecanoe County, on the previous plan, they were included in their own county plan, which they are in this also currently, but just in case there were some issues arising, possibly the town expanding or any items like that, we now have their participation. They've been participating in this meeting. We've added some goals for them also in our plan. The main goals are similar to they were last time. Again, we've taken the previous plan, updated the plan. We had Polis Center do most of the data analysis work. And then we here locally worked with most of the jurisdictions, everyone from the schools to a lot of the emergency management agencies, fire stations, police, put together goals that they have to help mitigate disasters. A little bit more focused this time than last time on more man-made disasters, accident and purpose-driven. Which you'll see in the plan. We will not be going over the plan in detail today. It has been available since the beginning of the month. If someone would like a copy, if they weren't able to download that, we can give them that, but we will be looking to move this on, get public comments, if there are some tonight, add them to the plan, and then pass that on for jurisdiction for July, and then that will keep us in compliance for some grants that the county is working toward.
Thank you, Larry. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak on this resolution or amendment? Resolution. Hearing none. Questions from the board? None? You have another yellow ballot then.
know that. Yeah, you got it. I wouldn't know where that. Off the boat. Fortunate.
And we had 15 yes votes and no zeros.
Thank you, Larry. Subdivisions.
I move to hear and vote on S 5071 Wiggins Farm subdivision, major preliminary.
I second.
Ryan, can you? This is a major preliminary subdivision request. It involves a just under 30-acre site zoned R1B, which is actually rezoned R1B just about a year ago. There was a commitment included that obligates these individual lots to have a minimum width of 67 feet, whereas the zoning ordinance would typically require a minimum width of 50 feet. That was volunteered by the petitioner. This is the east side of Salisbury and about a quarter mile north of Calbert. It's in West Lafayette, and the proposed subdivision would have 78 units. As you can see, would be accessed from Salisbury to the west. Main Street would continue to the east and connect to the estates of Arbor Chase, which has a stub street leading to it from the east. There have been no variances requested. It does meet all subdivision standards, and so staff is recommending approval. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Does the petitioner or petitioner's representative wish to make a presentation?
Good evening, Tim Balancey with T-Bird Design, 105 North 10th Street, Lafayette. We agree with all staff's comments and recommendations and conditions and request approval. Here if we have any questions.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak in favor of this? Anyone wishing to speak opposed? Hearing none, any questions from the board?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions? You have a white ballot and bonding.
Fifteen ballots cast, all for conditional approval with the bonding approved as well.
I move to hear and vote on S 5075 Wabash Ridge subdivision, major preliminary.
Thank you. This is another major preliminary subdivision. This would be for a multifamily proposed development Subject site is just under 11 acres. It's zoned R3 for multifamily. It too was zoned just about a year ago to R3. This is west of Paramount Drive and a quarter mile or so north of Sagamore Parkway in West Lafayette. The proposal would provide for 5 buildings, 5 multifamily buildings, and a total of but exactly 240 total units maximum, in addition to a clubhouse building at the south end of the development. There was a variance granted in January of this year to allow for 357 parking spaces, whereas the ordinance would ordinarily require 480. Notably, the petitioner is working with City Bus to design and find an optimal location for a new bus stop at the site. They would also be providing new sidewalks along the west side of Paramount Drive. Other than that variance for parking, there are no other variances have been requested, and it meets all other major subdivision standards. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hiddle. Does the petitioner or petitioner's representative wish to make a presentation?
Hello again, Tim Ballancy for T-Bird Design, 105 North 10th Street. Again, we agree with all staff's recommendations and comments and request approval. Here for any questions.
Thank you. Is there any member of the audience wishing to make a comment on this petition? Hearing none. Board, any questions from the board? They have requested, yes, bonding is requested. You have a white ballot then.
$15 ballots cast, all for conditional approval with bonding.
Thank you, David. Rezoning.
I move to hear and vote on Z 2856, BET Rentals LLC, R1 to GB.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Sorry, I don't know if I heard it or not. Okay. You're over here in Lafayette southeast side off of Brady Lane and then east of Concord. The main purpose of this is to legitimize an existing non-conforming business, the Twin City Electric group. Go ahead and zoom in there. There's their current site. The property has kind of a longer zoning history going back a bit, but the current GB zoning that was approved by council just east of this site really has sort of set the stage for this to kind of join with that zoning pattern, as well as making an existing nonconformity conforming. So it's a fairly simple petition. Obviously, the existing conditions are going to continue, and then the site would then operate under that new zoning district. Of course, city utilities are available. So it has been used commercially for many years. So there's really no objection from staff. We do recommend approval. We have to answer any questions.
Thanks, Ryan. Does the petitioner or petitioner's representative wish to make a presentation?
Good evening. Bradley Neely with Riley Teeter Shire. We represent petitioner BET Rentals. BET has filed this petition with the consent of the owner, which would be the Ross Trust. We agree and appreciate the staff's report and their time and efforts on this matter. I would like to add that there are no plans to develop or redevelop the site, which currently houses the Twin City Electric business. Additionally, we met with the mayor, Mr. Reynolds, and the city engineer about a month ago, and it's our understanding that they're supportive of this request. We respectfully request your approval and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any comments in favor or against on this petition? Hearing none, any comments or questions from the board? Very well, you have a yellow ballot. Michael.
We have a unanimous ballot recommending approval.
Thank you, Ryan.
I move to hear and vote on Z 2860, Richard and Gail Michael, NB to NBU.
Okay. You can ignore the title on this slide. That's incorrect, but the Z number is correct. And the zoning designation is NB to NBU, as was just called out. This is a somewhat similar case. Let's see, you can go ahead and go to the next slide, please, if there is one. I won't hold you up. This site also has a fairly long zoning history. It was rezoned in the late 70s from R3 to LB. And then the LB zoning district became neighborhood business, NB. The objective there being that this was a commercial area and that mixed use, even though the building already housed that, would likely redevelop. That didn't happen. So the site in question does have a single family dwelling on it built before 1900. Presently, there's a mental health provider leasing space on the first floor, and then the second floor has an empty residential unit. And these uses have continued for many, many years in terms of the commercial ground floor, the residential above. So the NBU zone was really custom made for these sorts of situations in the urban sewered area of the city. That was the thinking going into NUZO with NBU, and this site more than qualifies for it. The only thing that might trigger a request for a variance possibly is any other change in uses, division of the residential units into multiple units might trigger a parking change, and they may or may not have room on the site, but that's up to the owner to decide what they want to do. But if so, of course, city utilities are serving the site. So this is a pretty easy switch. Again, making an existing building useful by making the zoning conforming to its present use. So we are recommending approval. We'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Ryan. Does the petitioner or petitioner's representative wish to make a presentation?
Hi again, Brad Neely, Riley Teeter Schreier. We represent the petitioner, Richard and Gail Michael. We agree with the staff's report, appreciate their time and efforts on this rezone. The purpose of the rezone is just to allow the portion upstairs to be residential. At this time, there's no plans to divide the property, as Ryan had stated. We respectfully request your approval and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak in favor? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Any questions from the commission? You have your last yellow ballot.
Another unanimous ballot recommending approval.
Thank you, Ryan. Approval of July, or we have no administrative matters, so approval of July Executive Committee agenda.
The determination of variances.
Okay, determination of variances.
I move that the following requests for variance from Unified Zoning Ordinance are not requests for use variance prohibited from consideration by ordinance and statute. And those would apply to BZA 2080 James Allen and Tracy Bratton, BZA 2081 Patrick R. and Melinda C. O'Neill, trustees of the Patrick R. O'Neill and Melinda C. O'Neill Revocable Living Trust, and BZA 2082 Riverside Construction LLC.
I second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Director's report.
Thank you. The director's report was emailed out earlier today. Be happy to answer any questions. There's actually one thing that I forgot to put on there, but I think is kind of interesting, and I'll just mention it quickly because we started it today. The city of Lafayette has commissioned an external planning firm several times over the past few years to do neighborhood plans. MKSK is the name of the firm, and they've mostly been economic development plans, but some of them have sort of leaned into the land use arena, which is what we do. But because they weren't done in partnership with APC, they were never brought to the APC for adoption, and they don't have the full force of being an adopted component of the plan. But with this plan, which is going to be for the Lincoln neighborhood, we're going to be working in concert with them. We're going to have essentially one of our staff act as a liaison for that process and make sure they kind of meet the benchmarks that we need to be able to be comfortable to bring it to the Plan Commission for adoption. And so it's going to be eventually adopted, and therefore it could be raised here as an issue to pay attention to when rezonings come, variances, anything along those lines. So it'll have a lot more teeth than just an economic development plan. So I think that it's going to be a really good thing. There's a lot of neighborhood planning, especially in Lafayette, that's needs to get done, and this is a way to, I think, expedite that. The firm that they've used has done pretty good work, and so we're pretty confident that this will turn out well. I think it's a kind of a neat collaboration. So just mention that.
David, I just wanted to say in your report, you talked about meeting with TSC and the school corporation and on population and growth and that kind of thing. And I applaud you for that. I keep hearing a lot of people when we talk about subdivisions out in the public saying, what are we going to do with all these kids? So that will help, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's something Sally started several years ago. I think annually we would go and meet with their board and have a working meeting and just talk about where population is going to be changing, give them pretty maps that they could hold on to. And a couple of years it didn't happen because of the pandemic, but we restarted it yesterday, and they're very thankful for that. So it's helpful. We're glad they ask, you know.
Sure.
I think actually Sally initiated it 5, 6, 7 years ago, but it's good.
Thanks. Any citizens' comments or grievances? Hearing none, Mr. Schroeder,
I move to adjourn.
we're adjourned.
He's getting much better.
Tom,
I don't recall any
40
of your
minutes.
meetings being that